Don't get a big fright. It's not Sunday night at 7. It is Wednesday morning at 9. And my name is Derek Watts. It's not Rion Kreewagen. We welcome you to our First-Time Buyers Masterclass webinar. It's all about buying your first property, step-by-step expert education. And this is the big one, presented by the Elan Property Group and Real Estate Investor. So we've got about 4 hours and around 20 industry experts to give you the lowdown on buying your first property. And you know what? It's free. But first, let me introduce my co-host and moderator, Ipoleng Makari. Ipoleng is the CEO of Motseng Investment Holdings and a board member of Sapoa. She is a pioneering entrepreneur and an asset to the property industry. She is the relevant in the room. Ipoleng, what is the aim of today's property webinar? What can our audience learn?
Well, good morning, Derek, and thank you for that welcome. I think today is a fantastic opportunity for new property owners or to-be property owners to really listen up, join in, and hear from the experts about the challenges, the opportunities. I think, Derek, we are in a very interesting time in South Africa post this COVID era that we're going through. And I think any property, any individual interested in property, be specifically residential property, should make their time to listen to today's session. I think it's going to be well worth it.
But we're going to focus on first-time buyers, and we've got some really high-power panelists.
In fact, I was saying, looking at the panel, I mean, it is it's a real setup of some of the industry leaders. Derek, whether you're talking about the broking side and the residential part, on the residential side of property, or you're talking about some of the larger listed residential funds. And I think that is really something to really engage in as a first-time buyer, because when you think about it, Derek, it's not that easy. It's not that straightforward, buying a property.
It can be frightening. I remember when I was buying my first property at the age of 38. But that wasn't long ago. It was just a few years ago. I mean, it is one of the most important decisions you can make. So let's make sure you have the information, you have the research and knowledge you need to make the right choice. So we'll go through the agenda in more detail. In a few minutes, we start the first session, Why Buy Now? Then at 9:45, personal finance, budgeting, and securing a bond, the essentials. At 10:30, it's a session which you don't want to miss. Find your property, pricing, and location, followed by what it's all about. Session 4 at 11:15, acquiring your property. And from 12 to 1, we wrap up with some visual delights and inspirational ideas, new developments for first-time buyers. I will moderate the first session, and then Ipoleng is going to be very busy, along with Neil Peterson of Real Estate Investor and Eugene Boniface of Elan Property Group. Ipoleng, you'll be moderating that vital session, acquiring your property. It sounds simple, but a huge amount to learn there.
Massive amount to learn, Derek, and I really look forward to some of the panelists. I think we have a really great lineup, and I hope that everybody who's going to be part of it is going to take something out of it.
Great. Let's get cracking on the first session, Why Buy Now? As we said, a super strong team of panelists to convince you and me why now is the right time. We have Ryan van Heerden, the founder of Ryan's Realty. Samuel Seif, CEO of Seif Properties. Grant Smee, CEO, Epic Property and Realty One. Simon Smith, Director, Harcourts. And David Cohen, MD, Signatura. Welcome to you all. And Samuel, maybe we should just start with you. I was saying to Ipoleng, I only bought property at the age of 38. I don't know, it's a daunting world out there. So for those first-time buyers, and I know we're going to go into mortgages and details later, but what do you need? I mean, obviously you need a secure job. I take it we're going to be looking at somebody living in one of the major cities. So you've got to decide what areas you can afford to live in. But what are the basics of what you need to be looking at this program? Because a lot of people don't take home a lot of money these days. Look at my kids.
Morning, Derek. Morning, everybody. Yeah, I think it is quite a daunting task. And I recall even when I first purchased, and I've known property my whole life. My father started our business. So, one's not quite sure, one's nervous. You're looking at all the aspects. I think you said it early on in introduction. Your preparation is key. You have to do the basics as you would in any project, but this may very well be one of the largest investments you'll ever make. Most people who are buying in South Africa are coming in the age category of 37, so you were probably almost spot on. In fact, it has lowered down now just a little bit. It's around about 35.
That's
now,
crazy, really, isn't it?
No, that's probably the right time. It takes people time to get in, to make a bit of money, to create a deposit, etc. So it's not altogether unusual in terms of first-time buyers. What I do want to point out right up front, Derek, is that I've been in the industry 36 years now, and I think that arguably this is the best time in that 36 years for a first-time buyer to come into the market.
Well, that's the question we're asking today. So, Samuel, you tell me, why is this a good time? COVID, political instability, the world in shambles. Okay. Why should I go and buy any sort of property now?
So in South Africa, we're at 46, 47-year lows in our interest rates. Now, most people coming into the market for the first time are going to require mortgage finance, bond finance to be able to purchase their home. If you're going to be repaying that, you're paying it at the lowest rate we've had for 46 years. Now, normally also when you have what they call a buyer's market, in other words, a time when it's good for buyers, you have little stock. What we've got at the moment is a balanced market. There's a reasonable amount of stock, so there's good choice for buyers, and equally they can buy with a repayment element of only 7%. Now, contrast that to 3 years ago, when interest rates were 10.5%, 11%, that's virtually a 50% additional amount of per square meter space you can buy if you're looking at an apartment for the same rand output every month. And I think that we're in the it's massive. It's the difference between a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom, or a 1-bedroom home versus a 2-bedroom home, and all the facilities, and that allows you to grow and build your family. So all those factors taken into account, COVID notwithstanding and everything else, provided you have, and we can't guarantee that, but provided you have what one thinks is a secure job and secure financial employment and salary with it, now's the best time to be buying.
Samuel, thank you for that. Ryan, we mentioned 37, 38, but surely if you've got a good job and you're in your mid-20s, you can look at property. Ryan, I think you need to put your sound on. Okay, we're going to go to Grant Smee. Grant, did you hear my question? Why shouldn't you look at property in your early 20s if you've got a secure job?
Yeah, no, Derek, thanks. Look, I think you should be buying a property as soon as you possibly can. So if you're in a financial position to buy in your early 20s, hell, in your late teens, why not? So I think getting into property as soon as possible is certainly something that you should be doing, building your asset base, and not necessarily buying your home, but in addition to buying a home, considering buying investment properties, to build that asset base over a period of time. So to be honest, the sooner the better. The old adage of the best time to buy is now, I think works for no matter what age you're at.
How do you kick off? Simple question, but for somebody in the early 20s, where should they start? Well, obviously looking at this masterclass is a very good start.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
After that.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, educating yourself in terms of what finance is available, what sort of property you want to look at, what you want to achieve in terms of your property outlook and your strategy. So if you're looking to buy a home, what area you're going to look to buy and why you're buying in that area, researching the area, connecting with experts in that area to understand the future of property in that space. If you're looking to get into the investment arena and start buying investment properties, educating yourself again around the property investment strategies that you need that align with your goals, and then running down that route again of engaging with experts, meeting area experts as well as financial experts and legal experts to make sure that you've got all the structures in place to build your portfolio. So either way, it's connecting with experts and understanding the environment you're getting into to make the best possible decision.
Ryan, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hey, great. Welcome, Ryan.
Fantastic.
So we covered interest rates. That's a big factor, as Samuel says. But how do we overcome the barriers of this age? And what's the advantage of buying when they're also good rentals?
Well, interesting. I've been teaching my kids from a book called, just an audio book that we've been listening to in the evenings called The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of his cures for a lean purse is law number 5, which is own your own home. And so I've been explaining to my kids, I'm not big like Seif and the other boys here, but I've got about 56 tenants paying me rent. And the whole point is what they talk about in the book is if you own your own home, you've got some stability, you've got some equity, and that can grow over a period of time. So the whole thing is, I mean, it's about getting expert advice, as was mentioned by the other panelists, and actually taking the time to do research. I found, when I started out in real estate, I wanted to do everything myself. And then I suddenly realized, well, just like I want to get a plumber to fix my geyser, it helps to have a really good estate agent or a group of estate agents that you can actually bounce ideas off that will give you the right advice. And I can tell you now, I've just helped young guys, what we call them black diamonds in their mid-20s, professionals.
Yeah.
And it's actually cheaper to buy a home often now than it is to rent. And that's in the under million rand mark. I mean, if you're paying R1 million from a property, as Samuel said earlier, the interest rate at 10%, you're paying about almost 10,000 rand a month in terms of a repayment. Right now, with the interest rates, the lowest it's ever been, you're paying under 8,000 rand for the same property. So it really is an opportunity to get into the market and start building wealth. It's a foundation for wealth all over the world.
Just looked at a poll that came up there, and it said that, 79% of our audience right now is looking to buy a property. So that's a positive sign. And
Absolutely.
Simon, what attitude should first-time buyers come in with? Because I think we all know their ups and downs. It can be a very long-term investment, and you might be disappointed that after a year, it looks like you did the wrong thing. But what is the attitude you should come in with as a first-time buyer?
Thank you, Derek. I think the attitude is, property is not a short-term investment. You're not going to buy your property today and expect returns tomorrow. It is a long-term investment. But as everybody else has alluded to already, the conditions right now are really good for people to get into the market. The interest rates are really, really low, and it is the cornerstone of for a young person to start building their wealth. And I think that's what they've got to look at is you want to start building wealth throughout your life, and this is really one of those cornerstones. Get into the market now while the interest rates are low. It also creates stability. When you are a tenant, your lease expires every 12 months or every 24 months, and you're never quite sure. The landlord might decide to sell his property. He might decide to let a family member move in, or he just wants a different tenant, and then you having to uproot your whole life and move on. But I think at the end of the day, it is one of the key cornerstones of building wealth. As a young person, as a first-time buyer, it's a great time to into the market, but look at it as a long-term project.
Okay, now as Samuel said, a lot of stock out there. But how does one get to look at that stock? I mean, it seems to be almost old-fashioned these days to ring an agent and go and look at houses. I mean, youngsters these days will go online. What is the best way to see what's out there? Maybe we should go to Grant.
Sorry, Simon. The best way to view the best way to view property at the moment is certainly by connecting to estate agents. There are virtual tours available going online, Property24 and Private Property as examples where you can view properties. But ultimately, if you're going to make a buying decision, I do think you need to physically visit the property as well. So you can filter out the options you have digitally and virtually, but you need to actually visit that property and physically walk around, see where it's located, see any issues that might be with the property, if there's buildings that overlook your property, how the windows are, how the light is. There's so many things you can expect that you don't experience virtually that you need to see when you're at the property itself. So filter digitally, but go and ultimately visit the property you're going to make a buying decision on.
That's a good idea. So filter digitally and then start going to make the calls and see the properties. Samuel, first-time buyer, lots of things to think about in terms of, especially if you're going to live there.
Yeah.
I've just heard, you might have heard my dogs barking. You got to think of the basics. Can I have an animal in that complex? I mean, I know my daughter's got a flat down the road, an apartment, and they measure the dogs and they weigh the dogs.
Make sure the dogs don't grow too high.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So what do you got to think of as a first-time buyer before you think, why did I pick this place? Noisy neighbors, don't have pets. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, Derek. So I've lived with two maxims that have lasted my career. And the first and probably the most important is the one that says, rather buy the worst house in the best street than the best house in the worst street. Now, that stood me in good stead, as I say, in all my purchases, in all my advice for people. And it's a function, obviously, of how much a first-time buyer can afford. But really what I'm saying by this is that if you can get into an area which is considered the best, it's better to buy the worst house in that area. Take your time over the years, renovate it slowly, fix it up, refurbish it so that it stands equally with the properties around it. But what will happen is in that particular area or that particular suburb, because you will have greater capital growth, the value of your property will work. So I think it's very important that when one looks at it, now obviously that doesn't mean you're going to go into an area like Clifton for a one-bedroomed or a studio apartment when you've got 5 family members. But in the area in which you have, if it's just for you or 3 or 4 people in your family, look around. Don't take the first house that says, right, this works for me, it's got all the amenities, etc. See if there is, and we all know suburbs are cost or more expensive per square meter in different areas. Suburbs have got greater capital growth. Suburbs are considered better areas. Look to try and get into those areas. Start there. There's no problem with investigating. If you can't afford it and it doesn't suit your needs, then go down to the next one, etc. But live by that if you can. Buy the worst street, the worst house in the best street rather than the best house in the worst street. That's one. Sorry. The second one is, whatever you're looking for, try and find something unique. Always buy with in mind at some stage you're going to want to sell on and upgrade and move to something else. And that might be that if you're going to a complex, you're going to buy the one in the top corner. So it's got views all over. Or it might have a little bit extra in terms of walking the stairs, but it's going to have an appeal that when one day you want to sell, you're going to be able to just get that premium price when you're selling. So I think those two are very important. Now, you also have to be careful because some of these are subjective. A jacuzzi in a garage might have the extra jacuzzi, but it may not have the appeal.
That's what you would go for, Samuel.
No, well, clean my car at the same time. But the issue really is that if you can have something a little bit unique about a property, it will always stand you in good stead again when you're looking to resell.
You know what fascinates me is geography, because I know I'm just looking at Gauteng now, and yeah, you can buy apartments that may be 1,000 rand a month cheaper, 20 k's sort of out of where, or 30 k's away from where you're going to be working. Why do people neglect geography that much? And how important is it to a first-time buyer to think, how much am I going to spend getting to work? Ryan?
Well, that's a good question. You know, God only made so much land. That's why the coast is so expensive, because you can't just make more of it. And what Samuel said is exactly right, and the comments from Grant as well. It's all about location. If I think about Joburg, I'm based up in Fourways. You know, we call it, it's like this golden circle, which is the area of property inside the N1, N3 type of area. So outside, you know, if you're outside the N1, or should I say west of the N1 for those people who know Joburg, you can expand as far as you like. You can go way past Lanseria all the way into Hartbeespoort. But the problem is the cost of fuel, it's the cost of your time. And, you know, the road infrastructure is pretty behind as far as what the government's been doing this last while. So you can spend, you know, I ride a motorcycle, thank God for that, because I get around Fourways. But for all the other poor people in Fourways, you know, it's the parking lot of the William Nicol as you head to Sandton and Randburg. So with what I've seen is that there's undervalued areas that haven't yet been discovered by people. I think of places like Ferndale, for example, which is in the inner circle. It's inside that golden circle where you're literally 10 minutes away from Sandton or Rosebank, but you're not paying Sandton prices, where, you know, the cost per square meter can be 30,000, 40,000 Rand a square meter that you're buying. And in Ferndale, for example, you can spend 9,000 Rand a square meter and get a really decent home. So people have to look, obviously, because everything has got a time and money value to it.
Sure.
So the more time you spend in traffic is the less time you spend with your family. So it's cost you in both areas. So it is critical to look at that.
And I've had many complaints about you on your Ducati waking up the neighbors.
BMW, man, BMW.
Okay. Another thing that is very worrying for me, and I'm sure even more for first-time buyers, is because some people watch a program on Sunday night and they see that there are dodgy developers that are going to take them for a ride. So, Grant, what do we do about making sure that that development is secure and you know, it's not going to fall down in the next few weeks and cracks appear in the walls and the ceilings fall in? How do we make ourselves feel this is really a safe investment?
So look, I mean, there's no guarantees when it comes to developers. The biggest and the best developers have produced maybe some product that hasn't been of the best quality. But I think really you've got to go on history. So, you know, look into the background of the developer, understand what they've done in the past, go visit some of the other developers. There are some really big and good developers out there putting up some really nice stuff. We speak about Fourways, where Ryan is. There's a really good developer that's been there for 20 odd years, you know. So I think really look at the history of the developer, who they are, who their management team are. And then if the development company is new, then look at the experience of the actual people themselves. So who's leading that development, who's leading that development company, and they should have some background in development. Wow. Now, you can speculate and go down with the road with new developers, but that you've got to understand comes with speculation, gambling, and risk, I guess, is going down the road with some new developers, and you could win big, but you could also lose big. So it's that risk reward that you've got to consider going with a new developer.
Simon, I buy what Samuel says about buying the worst property in the best street. But if somebody is young and buying their first property and feel that they want to buy a developer's dream, you know, something that needs a lot of attention, is it too much to start off like that? I mean, should you start buying, you know, a spanking new apartment rather than trying to develop an old property?
No, I agree with Samuel. I think the thought process there is correct. Rather buy in the right area. I mean, you hear words like hotspots being thrown around, where the property hotspots. But I think at the end of the day, a first-time buyer really needs to focus on look at their situation, and a number of people have alluded to this already, and say where do you work, where do you need to be. It doesn't help you buy in a specific area because you've heard that it's a fantastic area. However, you've got to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to work. You've got to drop your kids off at 6 o'clock at school, and you only pick them up at 7 o'clock because to travel to work and back is a problem. You've got to look at the size of your family, and you've got to look at what all the associated costs are. So it's one thing being able to afford the bond repayment and the rates and taxes and all of this, but what are all the other costs in terms of the schooling, in terms of the transport costs and stuff like that. So I would agree with what Samuel said, is that rather look to purchase the worst property in the better area, but take into account all those other factors as well in terms of where you work, what the schooling facilities are like in the area. And you don't have to improve the property overnight. You can do it slowly, as and when you get some funds, improve the property. And I think another key thing here is, particularly if you're going to do that, is don't necessarily go into the market and buy to the maximum that the bank will lend you straight away, because immediately you are spending the maximum the bank will allow you. If interest rates go up, you might find yourself in some sort of financial pressure, and you're certainly not going to have money then to develop your property over time. So, I would say, make sure that you're buying within your means, and buy the best property buy the best property you can in the best area.
Thanks. Some poll just coming in. 87% of our audience believe it is the right time to buy property. So you're doing a good job, guys. Well done.
I'll give them my number.
Samuel, I remember just the whole process is a bit overwhelming, isn't it? As a young person, lawyers, deeds officers, banks, so many things to go through. How much help do you get from the agents along that process? That's what I want to know.
I think a tremendous amount of help. For us, these terms, that you're talking about, conveyancing, transfers, registrations, occupation, those are terms we know about. We use them literally the same as asking to pass the butter. But for people who are buying for the first time, these are terms they're not used to. So it's important and incumbent upon the agent to actually make people feel comfortable, to understand their position, that this is a first time, and to take them through the process step by step. That obviously goes through showing the property, discussing the condition of the property, talking about the patent defects, talking about latent defects, what the seller has disclosed to them, what they as buyers must look out for, etc. Now, obviously, you don't really get to the terms and until such time as you get to the offer to purchase, which you then need to explain when accepted becomes a deed of sale, and what that also implies and the commitment that you're going. But a good agent will have patience, will have time, will understand where a first-time buyer is coming from and take them through the process. It's important equally, though, that a first-time buyer doesn't just sit there and pitch up at something and say, right, I've seen this on the web, show me through, okay, great, let's go. They must do their homework, as we talked about earlier. They must start understanding what it means to make an offer. They must understand the obligations when they commit themselves. They must understand if an offer is accepted, that they are legally bound and what that means.
Important
they must
point.
They must understand in terms of applying for a bond, what that means to them financially, and how you can't just go and apply and not back it up if it's granted, etc. So those aspects, and I'm quite sure on YouTube there's a lot of small segments from different agents and specialists talking about those. But a first-time buyer must actually go and prepare. They must go and understand this is a very, very significant asset, and whether it's starting out at a plot for 300,000 or 200 or 250, or your first home at up to $1 million, it all is significant, and it gives you experience and allows you to do go through the process and learn what's important and what you have to do, and then go to the next one and the next one. But it's not only incumbent upon the agent. The first-time buyer must do their homework themselves. They must read up. They must educate themselves as to what the process is about.
Okay, saying that, Simon, I mean, there's so many developments that will just say, put down 10,000 Rand, or was it like 10%, or a certain amount of money, and you can't even see the property because it's maybe at that stage it's just a plot of land. So how committed are you when you buy into one of those schemes that is still, there's a term for it, of course, which you will tell me, but when you buy into a scheme that is just being built, how committed are you when you put down that money?
Well, I think as with any contract, providing you as the buyer fulfill all your obligations, and providing the developer fulfills all of their obligations, then you are committed. But if anyone's in breach of the agreement, if for example the developer fails to get the development off the ground, or it takes him a long time to do that, then the contract is there for a reason. And you as the buyer have just as many rights within that contract as the developer has. So it's all about who's fulfilling their obligations, who's not fulfilling their obligations. But providing the developer fulfills their obligations, you would be committed to the contract.
But then you must be very careful in the time restrictions, because it might take them 10 years to put the place up.
Absolutely, and I think before you sign any sort of contract, you need to make sure that the agent or the developer has explained those terms and conditions clearly, and that there is some sort of time frame and occupation dates in the contract.
But who looks after my money in the meantime?
Well, normally your money would be paid to a conveyancer. So the money would go into a trust account of the conveyancer. You would earn interest on your money, and so your money is sitting with an attorney.
Okay, Grant. What do you tell young first-time buyers who come to see you? What is the advice you give them?
Yes, I think we've covered quite a lot. It's making sure that you're buying in the right area for the right reasons, buying a property that you can afford, considering the interest rates might go up now. Look at the cost of actual ownership. Levies have actually increased a lot over the last few years. So you need to consider the complex itself. Look at the financials of the section type of complex you're buying into. Understand the rates and taxes. Don't just take somebody's word for it. Take a view of everything. So make an evidence-based decision in terms of the property you're buying by visiting the property, but also seeing all the documentation yourself. So dotting all the T's dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's is vitally important when you're going through that process. And don't just trust, for example, a single agent's word on it. Spread your risk by getting advice from experienced agents, experts, engage a conveyancing attorney as well early on, so that you can have a conversation with a lawyer who can explain to you the process from their point of view. Again, it comes down to that education.
Great. We've got a question here from Sashni Governor. If and when COVID is over, will this affect the interest rate if you buy your property now? Good question, Ryan.
It's a very good question. I wrote an article for Real Estate Investor Mag called Buy When There's Blood. And, it's just about, this is, as Samuel said earlier, 47 years, it's the lowest interest rate. But there's a reason why it's the lowest interest rate, because the whole global economy has come to a grinding halt. So, where there's chaos, there's opportunity, but also, when the pendulum swings down, it's going to eventually swing back up again. So you have to take into account, as Grant has said now, the interest rates will be going up again. So you can enter the market now. There's an option. You can go to your bank and say, listen, well, I'd like to fix my interest rate for a period. But the banks aren't stupid. What they'll do, the prime rate now is 7%. So you can actually go and get a loan now at 7%, at prime. You'll get a loan, and you can save quite a lot of money over the next couple of years. But it is going to go back up at some point, and it's going to go back down again. It's just the way the market works. So you've got to take into account if it goes up 2 years from now, what is your repayment going to be, and will you be in a position to cover that based on the simple analysis? Am I going to be earning more money? Will I be able to put more money into the property to reduce the risk that I've got in this property? So you've got to work out, as Grant mentioned earlier, you've got to sit down yourself and do some intelligent thinking. Draw a spreadsheet out, download an app which has got a mortgage app and a calculation. You can work out exactly what the interest rate will be, or what you'll be paying if the interest rate goes up another % or two. But I think for the next, say, 18 months to 2 years, there's not going to be a massive jump in the interest rates. And if you go and get a fixed rate from your bank, make sure that you are negotiating hard, because the banks want business as well. So you don't just accept whatever somebody gives you, whether it's an agent or whether it's the banks. You need to negotiate for your own interests.
Yeah, that was a question from Annika Bortis. It's a good idea to opt for a fixed rate at the moment, but you say that you've got to negotiate for that, hey? That's the bottom line.
And it's going to be higher than the prime rate. So they're going to build in the fact that the interest rate's going to go up. So if you negotiate a fixed rate, you're probably going to be paying now, instead of paying prime at 7, they may give you a rate of, say, 8.5. So now for the next 2 years, you're stuck at 8.5%, and the prime rate may stay at 7 or maybe go to 7.5. So you're effectively paying more. I would personally, I'm very careful about fixing the interest rate because the banks aren't stupid. They got actuaries there, and their job is to make the bank money. It's not for them to make you money.
There's a big difference at the moment, Derek. In the States, you can get a 30-year fix. A 30-year fix at 3%. Now, if you're looking at that, that is a good 1.5% above the existing level. So it's a significant in a percentage, or it's 50% greater, than your current rate or your variable rate. But it's fixed for 30 years. If you can look after that 3% rate, you're okay for the next 30 years. Now, unfortunately, and I haven't checked of late, but our banks are not giving anywhere near the same length of time. I think Tim later on today or this morning could discuss fixes, etc. But I think they're somewhere only between 3 and 5 years. I don't think the South African banks are giving much longer than that at present.
Much longer than that. Yeah, I mean, we always think that in the UK, for example, it's easier to buy because I think there are very fixed low rates there. But I was watching a program the other day where so few people in the UK can afford to buy a house right now. So maybe it's not so bad in South Africa trying to buy a property. What do you think, Simon?
I think it's a very, very good time, and just alluding to what both Ryan and Samuel have said is that although interest rates may go up and down, providing you've bought within your means, you'll be okay. But the alternative is you're renting a property, and when you look at a rental property, you virtually guarantee that on an annual basis your rental is going to go up by 5 to 10% per annum. So you don't really have control over containing those costs. Whereas purchasing a property, yes, the rates will go up and they will go down, but probably not to the same extent that you would find in a rental property. So I think now is a fantastic time to buy.
And now, very good question from Sibusiso Nkonyani. What's the percentage agents are getting from the price? And how can one negotiate price reduction? There's a sensitive one for you. And maybe it's a good one to end our chat on. How can we beat you guys down? Samuel.
Sure. I mean, I'll talk about that. You shouldn't. You shouldn't want to be beating us down. Essentially, the price, and it's a negotiation between the seller and the buyer. We have a fee. That fee is relatively small compared to the major principal amounts that will exchange between the buyer and the seller. And yes, we are negotiable, but at the same time, we play, I think, an absolutely vital role in educating both buyer and seller, the seller to market value, how to go about selling, the buyer as to what kind of price they should be offering, and playing the intermediary role between two contestants or opponents, as it were, each one looking to try and maximize their own position. So I don't think the focus should be on about the estate agent and the percentage. And in truth, it's interesting, in a study that was done in the States, they found that that buyers and sellers who negotiated without estate agents, the seller actually achieved less. Trying to save the commission, the net amount they actually got out was less. So when you look at it like that, for what we are paid, I think we play an extremely significant role. We bring people together, we oversee the transaction, we look after both parties, and I think the question really should be is how do I manage to negotiate my best price, and that's by being a good negotiator.
And dealing with the right agents, you're getting
Sure.
the knowledge and the expertise of many years, 35 years, Samuel.
Yeah.
Right, we've got to wrap up in 3 minutes. So last words to Simon and Grant and Ryan. Simon, what do you say? Encourage these people who are sitting on the fence, who are just thinking about buying a property?
Yeah, I think it's a really good time to buy, good time to get into the market as a first-time buyer, start creating some wealth, start creating some equity, which you can use as collateral in the future to do many things, educate your children, buy further property, start a business, all of this sort of stuff. Now's a good time to do it. I say go for it.
Grant, your advice, because I think you are the youngest on this team, I would say.
Yeah, well, thank you for pointing that out. There you go. No, by a long way, I think.
That's not so nice, Grant. That's not so nice. Thank you.
But no, look. I think it's absolutely the best time to buy. At the moment, interest rates are really low. Property prices are highly negotiable at the moment. So I really do think that educating yourself, and this is a good start to educating yourself, and then get off the couch and go start viewing properties. I think getting out there and seeing properties, you'll start seeing what you're interested in and understanding the market very well, and also understanding the experts that you're dealing with much better by building those relationships.
So get off the couch and stop playing that Xbox and get real, hey?
You need to make a decision. I just, 20 years ago, I started buying my first property, and lots of my mates spoke about it, and I just started. And lots of them are still talking about it, and they just haven't done it. And it's just, you've got to make a decision. There's never been a better time, the best interest rate in 47 years, and take the first step. There's so much research out there. The agents can assist you, and it's a straightforward process. You just got to step in and start walking.
I think that's a good way to leave it, team. What do you say?
All good.
All right. Thanks so much for being with us and for that wonderful advice. I think if I was a first-time buyer, I'd really be thinking very seriously about stopping the Xbox and getting out and looking at what's available. So enjoy the rest of the day. So much coming up on this webinar. Excuse me. A lot coming up later. We've got a whole lot of sessions, real experts that are going to give you the basics of buying a house, a property for the first time. From finding your property, your location, acquiring your property, and some sensational new developments for first-time buyers. But right after the break, we join up with Neil Peterson of a real estate investor and his team, taking us where it all starts. Finance, budgeting, and securing a bond. So please enjoy the rest of the masterclass, and I look forward to seeing you again on Sunday at 7. Don't be late. Thanks very much. Enjoy our masterclass all the way until 1 o'clock. Cheers for now.